So thank you again for coming. We have Michelle King Robson, who is a nationally recognized women's health and wellness advocate. Her company is Her, and you can find her on empower.com. She also is in the process of launching, or has launched, a new product called Skin Safe. We're excited to have her and to hear all about her amazing story, how she all started, and I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Barb. Hi, everyone. If you want to come up closer so we can really have a fireside chat, the guys in the back, happy to have you come up. Thank you for having me, number one. Barb, thank you for putting this together and for having me here and for having us here. It's been a great couple days and I look forward to tomorrow. I'm Michelle Robson, and Hashmi is my CEO, and Shana O'Connor is the head of development and has had every position at Empower. She's been with me since almost inception, so about almost 7 years since we launched the site. And she was a young girl, just fresh out of school, and she's really been a rock star for us. I'll quickly, I just want to hear what everybody does quickly, so if you wouldn't mind just sharing your name with me and telling me what you do and what you're interested in, so that we can make sure we capture, because we're all going to speak today, tonight. So I'm going to start.
Carrie Toth, and my day job is working at Mayo Clinic in the IT field with data. By night, I have a passion for women's career advancement and newly 3D printing. So I'd like to swap.
Great. Great. We love women passion.
I'm Meredith. My main thing is real estate and property management, but I'm really just kind of a entrepreneur at heart, so that's why I'm here.
Great.
My name is Heather. I work for a company called Active PT. We're a physical therapy clinic, and we're a woman-owned business too. We're kind of a little startup a few years ago. And then I also coach track and cross country, so go girls.
Go girls.
Paul Andrew. I'm actually with a hotel in town.
Okay.
My interest is that if this takes off in town, there may be more people coming and going, and just to see if there can maybe be a partnership with help with lodging.
Great, yeah, because we came in, all three of us came in from out of town.
I'm Shamila Mursekar. I work at Mayo in IT. I'm passionate about women and maintaining their career as well as your family, just finding that balance without giving up.
Right.
I'm here to learn more about health. And my dad is an entrepreneur, so I love this place. I still have that entrepreneur mind.
Good for you.
Sure.
I'm Gary Smith with Rochester Economic Development.
Hey, Gary.
I'm Brian Carlson. I'm a chemist by training. I work for an engineering and architecture firm here in town. And I'm here to hear and get motivated by the entrepreneurial story. Every time I come down here, I learn something new. So.
Great. Great, thank you.
Rochelle Rubio, I'm the program director for TechStars Plus, operating out of here at Mayo Clinic Business Accelerator. We have a partnership with Mayo Clinic where we bring our startup companies to discuss potential opportunities.
I'm Erin Lando. I am the health programs manager at Ovuline, which is
We've heard of you.
it's a global applications company that does women's fertility and pregnancy apps.
One of the TechStars Plus companies.
Yeah, yeah. We've heard all about you.
It's Miko Love with Mayo Clinic Ventures. I had a chance to get to know you in December by working with Barb and do a lot of things at Mayo Clinic, but I'm officially in a business development role.
Great, great, thank you.
Al Burning, I'm CEO of Ambient Clinical Analytics. We work out of the Accelerator.
Okay.
And we're doing analytics-based clinical decision support software for ICUs and emergency departments.
Great, thank you, thank you. Barb, how much time do we have? Are you going to give me the high sign?
We kind of allot 30 to 40 minutes for a presentation, and then we want to just save a little bit of time at the end for a lot of questions and answers.
Okay. So we're going to make this a real fireside chat because the three of us are here meeting with a lot of the male folks over the past 3 days and tomorrow, or past 2 days and tomorrow. So I think it's important, I'm going to share my story with you, but I think it's important to hear also from the CEO of the company and our head of business development of how, how things are structured and what we've done and where we've come from. But I'll tell you my story quickly. I was 42 years old. I was given a complete hysterectomy and I tanked. And so what I mean by tanking is I went from having hormones to having no hormones in my body. And I was given a particular drug that didn't work on me. And so, lesson number one is just because you're given a medication doesn't mean that it's going to work on you. So there's such a thing as personalized medicine. And we have to move to that more personalized medicine. So I went across the country. I had the resources to go wherever I wanted, and I did. I went to 9 different doctors across the country. I figured out a way how to meet Suzanne Summers because she had written the book, The Sexy Years. I mean, I did everything I could to try to get well. And in the process, I was over-medicated. I was put on medication that I now have to take, that I'll take for the rest of my life. And I was, misdiagnosed, delayed diagnosis, you name it. The list goes on and on. I spent a lot of time in bed and not being able to function because when you have no estrogen in your body, it affects 400 things in the body, in a woman's body. So it's very easy to kind of start spiraling down and tanking, which is what happened to me. I was working under our governor in Arizona. I was the head of a commission and I could barely function. So I spent a long time trying to figure out how to get well, and in the process I became very depressed over the whole situation, and one of the things that happened was I lost my brain function. And so your short-term memory loss as women goes as you start to go through perimenopause and menopause, and so you have no short-term memory. So I'd be in a movie and I'd come out an hour later, I could not tell you the ending of the movie. And when you get to that level, you just go, is life worth living, number one, and do I have the onset of Alzheimer's, number two, and why is it that no one can help me? And I was on 9 medications. So, just throw a pill at me and hope that it works, and none of it worked. So I ended up, there was a doctor who said, I know you're sick, I just don't know how to help you. But I know you're smart enough and you're going to figure this out, and then you're going to come tell me, and then I'm going to help my female patients. I kid you not. And that was the greatest gift that anybody could have given to me, because at least he validated, because he had been my doctor for a long time, so he at least validated that there was something wrong with me, but he didn't know how to fix it. And so I went on a quest, and those, back then, I'm 55 today, so I'm 40. When I was 42, you could go run to the bookstore, and I got every single book I could possibly find on hysterectomies, on everything, reproductive system that had to do with women, and I read all the books. I had 32 books. So I became a hormone expert by default, as I like to say, not because I wanted to, but because out of necessity, right out of my own need, I needed to learn how to navigate my own health and wellness. Someone gave me permission, which was the doctor. The 32nd book was called Screaming to be Heard, and every book that I read, one would say, do this, don't do this. Take this, don't take this. We were talking about this earlier, right? That it's so confusing, and women's health is so underserved. As I started to kind of dig down deep into this and saw how bad it was, and how bad it was for me, and I consider myself to be a fairly intelligent person, and not being able to navigate this whole thing and letting myself get caught up in the system was not good. But this book was given to me by a friend, and it was about this thick, and it was really clinical, and I'm like, there's no way, I have no brain function, I cannot read this book. But she kept calling me saying, you need to read this book, so I finally read it. I read the first chapter. She said, just read the first chapter, and the first chapter really told me, it was me. If you took her name out, you put my name in there, she was me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hit on it. And I spent 2 days and nights reading the book. I never went to sleep. And the doctor happened to be in my backyard. I lived in Phoenix, she was in Tucson. Now, I never would have found her on the web. I never would have found her book on the web. And so I started to realize that there's a pattern here. There's a pattern that women don't have what they need. And I also went to the web, at least 200 sites, and I posted, I'm depressed, I don't want to live anymore, I've had a complete hysterectomy, and it was crickets. No one ever responded. And when you're in that state, all you want to do is talk to a woman like you. And that's all I wanted, and I couldn't find one. And so that's what prompted me to start the company. When I got well, as I like to say, I got sick, I got mad, and you never want to get a woman mad because she'll run off and do something crazy like you're an internet-based company not knowing a thing about the internet. But it was from the passion that I had and the drive that I had to, and seeing how flawed the system was, and if I couldn't navigate it, what was happening to every other woman, and I had the resources to go everywhere, and I did, and I still couldn't get the help I need. So what was happening to every other woman around the world? And then I started fighting the FDA. And that's really how I started the company, because I could throw a lot of money at this and come at it from a perspective of, let's just throw a lot of money at it and see if we can fix it. Or I can bring women together collectively, and because we're amazing, right? We're extraordinary. We just don't know how extraordinary we are. We don't know how big our voice is. But when you can bring women together, you can create this massive voice, and you can go and say, you can no longer pass this because here's 1 million women that say that you aren't going to do this to us anymore. That's powerful. And that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create the ability to bring women together, to allow them to share information and resources. So if one was sick and one was well, or one was in the throes of it, that each woman could help the other. Because we are sharers by nature, we also caregivers by nature, and I wanted you to have good, solid, science-based, researched information that you could access, that you could understand, that you could read. I always looked at every study to see who was actually behind the study, because it's always interesting to find out who's doing the study and who's behind it, because it's very telling when the results come out of the study. So I created Empower. I used my own money. I built 3 websites that you couldn't click through in the very beginning, because that's what you do. You think you can build a website. It's easy, right? How hard can it be? That's what I thought. How hard can it be? Well, it's a lot harder than one would think. I always say the 3 times rule, 3 times more money, 3 times more time equals, you having a better business. But you always think that you're going to know what you're doing within a short period of time with less money and less time, and it's never what you think it is. And so everybody always gave me that 3 times rule, and I always went, yeah, whatever. And of course today it can even be 4 or 5 times, depending on what you're building. But I really wanted women to have options and choices about their health and wellness. We are underserved. There is no question about it. When 37% of the clinical trials are done on women today, and that's it. And we're seeing drugs dispensed like Lipitor and Zocor when you're menopausal, and 48% of women are getting type 2 diabetes because it was never tested on them. That is a problem. It's a problem when you have everything removed because doctors are trained to remove all the female organs, not one. So there are many reasons why, Empower exists, and it really exists because my passion and drive every single day is to ensure that women get what they need in the way of support. That's why we have the Ask feature on our site. That was the first thing that I said when we went out the door. I want you to be able to, I want women to ask a question, and I want a response within 24 hours. And not this team, but the original team, they were engineers actually. They said, you can't do that. I said, why? Well, it's not a scalable model. I go, I'm not worried about scalability. Just give me what I want. It's my company, and don't tell me no, because I'm going to show you 10 million ways to do it. And yes. So we created the Ask feature. If we ever get to 23 minutes, which I think it's happened one time in 59 seconds, somebody gets fired. That's how serious I am about it, because I think you deserve to have a response. If we're going to take the responsibility as a company to be her and to work with her and to give her information, we better be responsive. And if we're not responsive, then we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be on the web, period. most people take the stand of, we're here to make money, we're here to run ads. I wouldn't let there was no ads on the site for the first 3 years. They were having a heart attack that I wouldn't put an ad on. And, founder beware, because, when I finally said, when they said, you have to run ads, and I let them put ads on the site, the women came back and said, oh, finally, we were wondering if you were a shill for pharma or what you were because you weren't running any ads, right? And I thought they'd be furious at me for putting ads on the site, and they actually, it was quite the opposite. So, us founders can get in our way. I've done that more than once, but if I'm not failing on a daily basis, then we're not growing as a company. So I view that as an opportunity whenever we have things that come up. But I think for me, the real, that they're there for us is that it's all about her. Every day we say in the company, what's in it for her? If you're an advertiser for us, you have to tell us what's in it for her, how you're going to help her. If you can't help her, you don't get to play in our sandbox. It's just that simple. And I brought people into the company who can help drive the vision and mission. And the mission is very simple. It's to touch every woman around the world. It's to make sure that women have access to the correct health information that they need, and they have access to other women, and that they have good, solid information. They have an option. They have options and choices which we've never, ever, ever been given. And we need that, and we need to start taking our health and putting it into our own hands instead of letting somebody tell us what we're supposed to do. And so I will leave you with this, and then we'll kind of open it up. But I always say fire your doctor, because you can. Women don't think that they can fire their doctors, but you're paying for the service. So if you're not getting the service you deserve, then you need to do something about it. And we've got toolkits on the site. We have all kinds of things that we've developed to help you as a consumer push back on the system, because the only way that we're going to make change today is if we actually push back on the very system that has not taken care of us. And we need to have equality across the board with everything. You can't have 30%, 37% of the clinical trials done on women. That's just not enough. We're not like men. There's nothing about us that's the same. And yet we're lumped into the same. The FDA views us as the same. It's the first time in the history of the FDA ever has dosed a drug differently for men and women. It happened about 4 months ago, and it was Ambien. First time. So, look at men, look at the men in the room, and then look at us. And we're dosing the same medication the same way? You're kidding. And then most of it is not being tested on us. So it's so backwards today that we as women have to flip the switch, flip it around, and start making sure that we are getting exactly what it is that we need. And that's one of the reasons, quite frankly, why we're so excited about the partnership with Mayo, is because it gives us the opportunity, it gives me the opportunity and the company the opportunity to really push forward for women, because no one's been doing it. We've had laws passed that when you have a breast removed, you go home the same day. That's not acceptable. But it happened, and it got passed. And we're trying to reverse it, but once it's in the system that way, it's really hard to reverse. So we kind of, I like to be the watchdog on these things. There's something going on now that I'm not happy about, that I'm really going to be a watchdog on. It's called the Step Fail program, and it's going to happen to everybody, not just women. Where you're going to take a drug, you're going to be given a drug that isn't tested, that isn't FDA approved. It's off-label, instead of the drug that you should take that is on-label, that was actually FDA approved. They're going to give you 2 drugs before you get the real medication. And you're going to have to fail on both those drugs before you actually get the real medication. So this is happening with a drug called Brisdell, which is it has no estrogen in it. It's actually an SSRI. It's a low-dose Paxil, very, very low dose. So they're giving you a high dose, which doesn't work, which actually does the opposite. Then they're going to give you a different SSRI before they're going to actually give you the drug you need. Now, how can any doctor practice like that? But that's what's happening in the world today. That's what's happening in the world of health and wellness. The doctors aren't happy about it either. There have been 3 states that have overturned it, but that's it so far. And we're trying to get it overturned in Arizona, but I don't know that we'll make much progress with it. It's hard to get these things overturned once they're put into the system. But this is why I started the company. This is why I have passion around it every day. I get up in the morning, what do? I check there's a health meter that you can see that we created. We created this health meter for a particular reason, because people were saying that we're changing, saving, or improving their lives. But the actuality was, can you find it, Gina?
Yeah, I don't feel connected.
No. But we couldn't validate it, right? It's one thing for you to be able to say it, but I actually wanted to validate it. I wanted to validate it for many reasons. There we go. I wanted to validate it so that, number one, if brands were connected to that content, then we could see what that content was and we could tell the brand.
You're connected to the wrong network.
Yeah. No, it's, you should be Civic Accelerator Network.
Give it a,
It's entrepreneur.
So that's the password.
That's all right, I'll talk about it, she can find it, Shana can find it, but anyway, so we created Save, Changed, and Improved, and I want to make sure those numbers are changing every single day. If they're not changing, then we're not doing our job. And it's really about content creation, or it's about sharing. If a woman shares her story, and today you can't see the back end, which is unfortunate. You will be able to see the back end of this, because that's where all the nuggets are, because they tell us why. Was it me sharing something? Was it a piece of content? I mean, we've had people come into the company who said, I read your newsletter and I actually had an aortic aneurysm, and I didn't realize what it was until I read your newsletter, and it was ready to rupture, and I went right to the doctor and I ended up in the hospital and had surgery. And they came in and said, you saved my life. And when you can validate that, when you can hear those types of stories and you go, you know, it's worth all the time and effort that you put into it and the money, when you know that you're actually making a difference in people's lives. And there it is. Did you find it? Go up, just scroll up. There it is, it's right there on the right. So you can actually go in and tell us what happened. And when we originally created this, all you had to do was click on it. So we were saving lives left, right, center. Every day we were saving way too many lives. I'm like, wait, there's something wrong here. And so we made it, you had to go through a step process. And this is part of what you do as a company, right? You're iterating all the time. It's constant movement, constant motion. Even with the website, it's constant motion. But we wanted to be able to say that we were actually doing it, and how are we doing it, and who are we affecting? And there are a lot of men who come to Empower too. There's a tremendous amount of men. There's a tremendous amount of men. But now our job is to really create tools, and I'm going to let Aki and Shana talk more about what we're doing today. But if you have any questions for me, feel free to just ask. But you know, it was really out of something bad comes something great, and when I was in the throes of this, I never thought I was going to survive it. I just didn't. I thought my life was over. And the fact that I can sit here today in front of all of you and show you what happens out of something bad is really, to me, the greatest gift of all. And be able to make that kind of impact on women's lives, and men's too, quite honestly. And I always say behind every man is a great woman, so why wouldn't we help men, right? Because, and that's the truth. And I think that's the real heart of our company, is our job is to make sure that you have what it is that you need around your health and wellness. And with that, I'm going to let Aki kind of explain to you all the new things that we're doing and creating, and why I stalked him for 4 years until I got him into the company.
So 4 years later, I'm here. So I'm a startup guy. I love startups, my passion. And this is my first health play. Never done health. So learning a lot from Barb, Michelle, everybody here. So when, you know, I guess last company we knew Empower Her pretty well. Everybody knows Empower Her. And you know, it's a site with 750 categories, lots of data. And what's interesting is when you start to look at women's site, there's nothing at grand scale. There is no massive online community around health for women. And it's powered by women. And so when you start to look at these categories, it's very hard to get scale when you get down into like different types of conditions. You get to gout, you get to ankle fusion, and to build scale. So, you know, looked at it, and to me, and something that, you know, we heard, we read a quote, we shared it, Mark Andreessen said the next technology transformation will be in the health space. So he put health and education in the same spot. And then you look at recent activity, you've got, you know, you could probably correct me, maybe it's about $4-point-something billion have been put into consumer health companies in a very short span of time. So here at HER, we believe we have a phenomenal opportunity because, you know, women are underserved. You know, it's from all angles, from the health perspective, from the support perspective, from the marketing perspective. You know, it's like you look at marketing, it's this airbrush mentality. We were in one conversation today, it's how the woman is presented in ads. And, you know, this airbrush way of looking at beauty does not resonate. And so even marketing has to change. So what we're doing now is we're focusing the company, the brand is HER, really around helping women, you know, really coming down, making complex decisions about their health and wellness easy. Because there's also a lot of noise. We want to make it very easy. And at the same time, we're also looking at the side, because we need to make money too. And so we want to create, you know, beautiful campaigns for advertisers that can captivate her in a very authentic way. So that's kind of at the heart of what we do. And from that, we have our flagship, which is Empower Her, which you see. You know, it is a vibrant community. It's a large community focused on health, powered by women, about women. We have Skin Safe, which is our partnership. We believe it is a significant opportunity because it started off as just being a database for allergens. And so what we've built is really a platform that's becoming more an ingredient-based recommendation engine for anybody. So think of Amazon as being a product recommendation company. You know, we're moving to the next level. We're using ingredients as a way to recommend the best products for you based on your skin, based on things that you're looking to avoid, but be able to do that in a much larger and broad sense. So if you want to, on one side, you want to avoid allergens, you can. We'll tell you what you can buy today. Next level might be you have some safety concerns. You don't want lead, you don't want formaldehyde. We'll tell you what you can buy today that's excluded from things that are available in the store. You can scan it, you can pop a link into our site, and we'll tell you exactly where the product stands. It's a new personalized shopping experience that we've created. So that went live to the physicians early this week, and it's going to the consumers this week. And then the app, once approved, will go live also to the marketplace. And then lastly, we have the ad exchange. We have all that data, think about it. We know how to reach her, as Shana would say. And we do it in a very engaging way. So we are launching the HER ad exchange. It's a way that you can use content, you can use any type of creative to reach her wherever she is. It can be through the journey, and we can serve different types of content to her. It's a very data-driven approach to marketing. At the end of it, you know, we want to make women healthy and happy, and if we make women healthy and happy, it's going to be a beautiful world, right?
A healthy and happy world.
Yes. Kayla?
Well, I mean, you guys covered everything, but to chime in just on what Aki was saying, I think her ad exchange is really, so that her umbrella, I mean, have taken Michelle's vision of really trying to make health and wellness better for her and broadening it into, starting with Empower Her to Skin Safe to her ad exchange, and figuring out what other tools can we build, what else can we create to really help women. And again, it's all centered around what's in it for her. What can we do to actually help women in their health and wellness? Her ad exchange is something new that's not quite launched yet, but will be very soon. Is really another take at it. So trying to deliver better advertising to her, trying to help publishers promote content better through a select group of sites that we've handpicked, really centered around the mission of helping women. So we're really trying to change how people are creating advertising, how people are creating content, really centered around women. And even the Skin Safe, it's really will challenge the brands and manufacturers of what kind of products are they creating and what products are good for women, and having women be able to decide what's good for them, I think is really what it's all based on, is what's personalized for you, what's the best thing for you, and we're giving you the tools and resources to make a decision yourself.
And you may decide that you want to use a product and it's only 50%, it only meets 50% of the criteria, right? That's your option. We're not telling you you should or shouldn't, we're just going to give you the data and say, okay, here, it only meets 50% of the criteria. If you love the product, then you know that you might be allergic to it or you may not. But it gives you, again, that option and choice of, it's all about the consumer. It's empowering you as a consumer. And that's our job. That's what we're here to do every single day. We also, when I started the company, I front-loaded all the content. So 750 conditions and about 50 topics we front-loaded with our own content. So you can only imagine how rich this content is on the site. It's so rich that I can't find my own content because one of the things that happens when you're a company like ours is you continue to grow, right? You're just like moving and shaking and rocking and you're doing 5 million things when you really need to be focused on one thing and stay with that one thing and stay focused on that one thing and not let the founder get you, blasting you across 5 different areas. And so we created so much content and we built it on a system that just we've outgrown. And so now we're redesigning the whole entire system and the look and feel to make it easier for a woman to come on, a consumer to come on and to have a better experience, right? Because you're always looking for a better experience. You want women to stay on. You need to look at your analytics. You need to see what's working, what's not working. Everything comes down to numbers. I hate numbers. What's the thing I hate the most? What did I do the worst at in school? Math. What is this all? Math. The entire thing is math. And one of the things that we didn't do either that, I'd highly recommend depending on what you're thinking of doing is A/B testing. You need to test everything. Does this work? Does this work? Does that work? Does this work? Because you'll find out the consumer will tell you every time what they need. But you have to be able to, you have to be able to reach out to the consumer to see what her needs are. We can say all day long, I know what you need. But in the end, I know what I need. And what you need and what I need might be very different. And the experience may be different, but it's really important to, understand your market and then execute according to that market. And it's difficult to do. And I love the women in the room that are on the IT side and the technology side because there aren't that many women that are doing it today. And it's difficult. It's difficult to find them. And our brains track differently than a man's. There isn't anything about the male and female that are the same, right? But the tracking of the brain is very interesting, how a man's brain tracks versus a woman's. So when you're designing something like this, who do you want to track their brain to? Women. Because women are the ones that are going to be using it. Women are also the consumer. And we as women need to take a stand on the consumer side of this. Because we don't. You look at boards. How many women serve on major boards of Fortune 500 companies? Not very many. And yet we're the ones who are consuming all the product. we know that companies that have more women on their boards do much better. But yet we still have this, we're still in this, so it's time for us to own, we need to be happy and healthy. That's first and foremost, and put ourselves first, not last, but first, because you're taking care of everyone. So you can't put yourself on the back burner anymore. You have to put yourself first. That's not selfless. It's selfish if you don't put yourself first, because you're taking care of your entire family. And then you need to make sure that you own your outcome, all your outcomes when it comes to your doctor's appointments, whatever it is, that you keep your records. Your records need to be kept with you. You can put them online if you want, but I have my records in books, and I do it for a reason. And if I ever get into trouble, it's all there in black and white. It's really easy to figure out and to find, and that's part of what we do. It's the advocacy piece of this. Teaching people how to advocate for themselves and what's the best way to go. And you need to do that. With what's going on in the world of healthcare, you're going to need it more and more and more. And if you don't have access to someone like Mayo, you're even in the Mayo system, you still have to. It's your responsibility. It's your body. You need to take charge of it. And I think that's one of the things the main things when I go around the country and speak, is that, I speak to that very thing, that, it's yours. You own it. Nobody else does. The doctor's only there to help you, and I always say to female patients, ask the doctor what he or she needs. What do they need from you? Because it's a collaboration, and you both have to be working together in tandem, and if you can't work in tandem, then it's not going to work for you. And I see too many incidents of, I'm writing a book, I'll write a book while I'm down for 6 weeks on know your numbers, know your body parts, because women don't know their body parts and they don't know their numbers. Very basic things that we need to know, and men too. We all need to know those things. That should just be ingrained in our brains, and it's not. So this is why this company was created, and this is why we're going to continue to collaborate with great organizations like Mayo and others who have the same vision and mission as we do, to bring better health care to the consumer and to make the experience better. We want you to be healthy and well, healthy and happy. That's our goal. And that's not what we see today. And that's not what I field every single day on my telephone, via email or via text message. And that's the part that really has to change. So I'm going to open it up to questions, but that's, it's so critical that, we have it, that we create these partnerships, that we create these tools, that we have these, that we're advancing all the time, and that the site, everything that we do is going to be iterated upon all the time. It is never going to stay the same. I had to get used to that because I wanted to build it, and then I wanted to go on to the next thing and build it, and that's just not the way this business works. And so you have to get used to, and I like perfection, and you can't have everything the way you want it all the time, because you're gonna see it when it comes out. As we've launched Skin Safe, we've seen things already that we go, oh, how did that happen? Oh, where did that go? But that's part of that's part of getting the user experience down, and actually the experience on the doctor side as well. And our goal is to, when I first started the company, it was to help women and make money. Today, it's very different. It's make money so I can help more women. There's a shift that had to occur in my brain. And it was not a shift that I was used to. Because I would say, do good, do well. No, do well, do more. So, and women are notorious for this. So that's why I'm bringing it up, because we're notorious for not wanting to make money off of, other women. Well, let me tell you something. It's okay to make money because you're only going to help more women by doing it. And I will close with that. But that was a real shift I had to make in my own mind to get us to where we needed to go.
We have a very wise woman in this town.
Pardon?
Our Sister Jenna Rose. And one of her saying, her most famous saying is, no mission, no money. No money, no mission.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just what you just said.
Exactly. It's exactly right. And it's so interesting. Feel free to ask questions. That's what we're here for. I mean,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
I have a question. I mean, you started this just out of, you wanted to help women, and you had deep pockets to kind of do this plus your time. How did you monetize this?
So in the very beginning, we didn't monetize it, right? We did some direct campaigns. So we would go direct to Johnson & Johnson, for example, and we did campaigns with them direct. But we didn't do any traditional advertising, so there were no banner ads on the site. In fact, in the very early days of the company, I wouldn't even take an email address because I wanted no barriers to entry, right? Like not one. So I didn't even take an email address. How stupid was I? Like, you know, that is just like 101. But I really wanted women to feel like they had a safe place to go. So then we started. So then, you know, they said you have to run ads. Like you don't have enough money to keep this company going if you don't start doing some advertising. So that's when we started running the banner ads, and you know, but still keeping it within our, you know, what's good for her, right? Keeping in our marketplace, which I would see these ads pop up, and I go, ooh, that one needs to go away. That one needs to go away. But that's really how we started. And then we do a lot of direct deals today. So that's what Shane is responsible for, but we go direct to the pharmaceutical companies and or whoever the brands are that want to go direct to her, because we've got 4 million women on our site a month and growing exponentially. So by the third quarter this year, where will we be? How many women?
You know, maybe 6, 5.8 million.
And again, around how we work with clients and partners, it's really around content creation. So we have an in-house team. It's her content studio. So we've actually developed, it's comprised of journalists around the globe, health and wellness writers, bloggers. We have a team of medical advisory board members. There's about 26 of them. A few Mayo doctors are on it as well. And so this team of, right now it's a couple hundred, so between our writers or bloggers, and a lot of them have actually been through health issues themselves. So it really helps them be able to tell stories well. So that storytelling capability really helps the authenticity of it. So through the content creation, we're able to help brands tell their story and really connect them with women. So as Key and Michelle were saying, we know how to reach women, and part of the way we do that is through content creation. And related to health, we're starting to develop life cycles of a condition. So trying to identify where a woman is and what she's dealing with, and what is the content that'll help her now. What is the content that'll help her next? So really trying to help a woman through what she's dealing with, and then for advertisers, helping them reach the specific women that they're looking for.
You also need to be really careful about, especially with the internet, that things change every, you know, I call it the wild, wild west, because it is still the wild, wild west, and things are constantly changing. And so we learned something today that, you know, that we have to stay on top of, because it can literally tank our business overnight. And you're going to see that happen in the next few weeks with what's going on with some of the things changes that Google are making. And so you don't even know, like you have to be very, very conscientious about reading about your particular area and field every single day. So we are constantly passing around information across the team, and we each read different periodicals and news so that we can stay apprised of what's going on, because it can change in a nanosecond. And I mean in a nanosecond. And we're building our business so that we don't have to rely upon Google. Because if you do that, you're going to be in serious trouble, because you've got one source, and you can't have just one source that you rely upon, because that's your whole business. So that's been a big thing for us. And I'll say that with this, because it's ingredient based, you can only imagine how many ingredients are in here, right? So when that gets indexed with Google, you know, this is going to be a huge, huge, huge site. This will be much bigger than Empower will be, just because of the ingredients and the cross reactors in it. And so it's a very interesting play.
I was going to say, can you tell us about her, i.e. your user sort of demographics? And then I wonder how much of what you do is more so reaching maybe millennial women early on to educate and be more preventative in your...
We get young women on our site every single day. I mean, we have, the range goes from 13 to 90. And one of the things that they said to me when I started the company is pick a demographic. I said no, and they said you have to. I said no, and they said you have to. I said okay, 35 to 65, whatever, because it's going to go. I said it's going to cross over every boundary anyway, and sure enough, it did. But Shana can give you the actual statistics of where I think the median age is 38 years old, and but it goes. I mean, our fastest growing segment is what's
30 to 60.
Yeah, the 30 to 60 age group.
But also keep in mind is when we change our content push, we can change the profile
Yeah, we
too.
change the profile.
We have that much influence now, so we can easily do that. But we just have to create a lot of content.
But it does go, it pretty much goes across, from the young to the, but that's because, again, the resource is there, right? There just aren't that many resources, and the Ask feature has been a big piece of that. And there's sexual health content that, has been problematic for us as a company of how do we deal with the sexual health content. I think it needs to be brought forward, right? Women need to be educated about their sexual health. And yet we have gotten slammed by Google and others for having it. So,
Inappropriate content when it's women not sure if they're pregnant is one of the most common questions we get asked. So we're not understanding, Michelle was saying, their bodies. So young women trying to find out how do you get pregnant and not knowing, and afraid to go anywhere else and to ask these questions.
now they have nowhere to go. A lot of these topics are so, if you really think, if you get a chance to go on Empower, and I hope that you do, go look up a thread called "What Kind of Woman Thinks of Leaving a Sick Spouse?" Just look up sick spouse, just Google it, because we own it. Because we've got so much content around it. But when you think of health, you think of health as being, condition-based, right? Well, it's not. It's all these fringe things. I call them fringe conditions. So it's the aftermath of a spouse being sick and the wife working, and her having a child, and the husband stays at home because he's got MS and it's getting worse. It's getting more progressive, and he is ornery. He's not only ornery, he's angry. And so she comes home and she writes to me in the early days. Again, you could write to me personally, and she said, he doesn't even like me, not alone love me anymore. I have a 6-year-old child, and I don't know what to do because he's witnessing this. And she goes on and on and on. I'm sitting there just crying, and I asked her, can I put this out in the community? And in the early days, there was no community, right? But I still wanted to see if we could get some feedback from people. That's one of our longest running threads. I just got pinged again today on it. And so what happens is people came in and they said, I stayed, and here's why. Because here's what she couldn't do. She couldn't go and talk to anybody. Because if she went and talked to someone, what were they going to say? You're going to leave your sick spouse? What are you thinking? Like, you can't do that. You signed up for this program. So the only place that she could really feel comfortable to go to is a place like Empower, where she could have that dialogue. And it's so much bigger than anybody knows. Because if you look at the thread, you can see how huge it is. And so men and women both came on and said, I left, and here's how I did it. And I stayed, and here's how I made it work. And so she came back on several months later, and she said, it's gotten worse. More people came in.
The comments, people, like, this is one.
And they're long, they're huge threads.
What do I do broken?
But you would never, when you think of MS, do you think about what's going to happen to the family? What's going to happen to and how do you cope with this? I think there are 80 million Americans who are caregivers today. They're not licensed caregivers, they're just caregivers because they have to be. And so you see this as an example, and you go, this is why sites like ours are so powerful. When you can have that content, and she finally comes on. Now she's been anonymous, and she finally comes on and she tells us who she is, what she does. She's a PhD, she's got a PhD She's a very successful woman, and she says, I left and I credit and pound her for leaving. Thank you so much. That's when you know you're making a difference. And that's what makes us so unique. Because it isn't really what you think. Heart attacks are one thing, but a broken heart is something different. And I'll end with that, yes?
So you talked about all the content that you put together, and you started off with, what, 750
Conditions,
items,
yes.
conditions.
Yes.
And so how do you sort through two things? All of the fluff that's on the internet and that everybody wants to be able to talk about, whether it's real or whether it's functional or valuable or not.
Right.
And then how do you, in those folks or business or product that want to have some kind of association with you, how do you sort out, get the wheat from the chaff? And then the other part is, how do you decide what of all of that content that you want to jump into and you want to talk about? And specifically, so we just talked about the woman who was taking care of sick spouse. And so I'll raise the flag. So my mom, 82 years old, taking care of early dementia spouse. How do you can't talk about everything. So how do you sort through and get, it's not the most valuable, but how do you sort through and decide what it is that's going to go onto your site?
So we have an editorial process that we go through, which is a pretty rigorous process, right? So when we write an article or a story, it goes through editorial review. And so we choose stories based on maybe what's happening. You know, we have an editorial calendar that we work off just like you do, just like a magazine would. With the sick spouse, so that's how we have a whole medical board, right? And we've got medical review, we've got all kinds of review processes that we go through because we can't capture, we can't cover everything every day. But we have to create content every day in order to be found. User-generated content on the web, so someone who's writing content, posting on our site, Google views is the best content. But we also have our own content that we write, and that content is very valuable, and Google comes and crawls that, and you want them to do that every day. So you have to create content. You don't want to be static. So we choose based on the editorial calendar what we want to discuss, and sometimes we're going to talk about Ebola because it comes up like that, so we have no choice but to put it in the mix. With the sick spouse, what's great about Empower is there are 450, 500 groups today. I can't even tell you the number that maybe Aki or Shana can. And those were all started by someone, not by us. So they were started by someone and they built their own group. Some of the groups you can't get into because they're private. So you have to kind of knock on the door and say, I meet the criteria to get into your group, and then they tell you whether you can get in or not. I can't get into the groups. And then there are other groups that are open that anybody can go to. So I'm sure there's caregiving groups on there with which your mother-in-law is, right? So she can go and she can actually start dialoguing with other people like her who are in the throes of it, and what are they doing to manage it, right? Because that's what they're looking for, is what are ways to manage that. And you'll always get a nugget, and it's just, even if it's one nugget out of that you get, that can totally change the way you think about it and can help you actually deal with it and manage through it better. So,
And we have the ask too.
And the ask
it's open to everybody. So you can come in, you can ask a question, you get a reply, you might start a thread, and it goes viral.
So anybody can ask a question or share their story.
And the reply may be medical because it comes from...
It's our moderators.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a team, we have an editorial team that includes the writers that I talked about in her content studio, and then a team of moderators. And the moderators include, there's clinical background, and then moderators that may not have a clinical background, but they're there to help you, one, feel not alone, because like Michelle, when she's going through her journey, she just wanted somebody to respond to her, let them know that she's not alone, and to really help them direct them to content that may help her next, or to help her through her journey. So again, within 24 hours, somebody, a real person, one of our mods will get back to her.
And then a lot of times they'll have to run the content by me, or if it's a specific thing that they're gonna talk about, if it's a drug, for example, or something like that, I can override. And sometimes I do. But my job really is, when I first started the company, I said, I'll never deal with that pharmaceutical company, I'll never deal with that. I never wanted a doctor on my site, right? Never. I said, no doctors allowed. Now I have 8,500 videos of doctors, right? And I have doctors who come to the site all the time. And they think nothing of answering questions just because, and they're garnering information, right? They're getting to see what real women are talking about and what they're experiencing and how they're getting helped. And so they'll say, I'm a doctor, I hope you don't mind. They identify this just like the men do. The men will say, I hope you don't mind, I'm a man. But they're very respectful. But that's, again, part of that is the moderation, because it's got to be safe. If it doesn't feel like it's safe and it doesn't feel like we're wrapping our arms around you, then we are not doing our job. Because I didn't want to have that. You can't have that experience that I had. If you have that experience on our site, we are not doing our job right. Because you should feel like you're being brought into a community, a site that cares, and actually somebody's on the other side of the screen that's actually looking at it. Shocking, right? It's shocking, because that's not what you see. And it just kills me when, especially in the health side, when they're disseminating information that isn't good so that they can make a buck. It's not right. We heard a story, was it yesterday or today? But I was just like floored of this woman, she was given really bad information. And so she was hurting herself.
The other thing I will add, just a side note back to your point, so I'm always constantly thinking, is one thing we've done that's helped us a lot, and something I encourage everybody, is the entire team gets a daily report every day.
Every day.
It's in their inbox by a certain time. We look at everything from traffic, source of traffic, down to categories, which categories are going up, all in real time, down to downloads. We get into engagement, how many page views we're getting, from what source, social media, all the activity around it. We get down into content, then we look at monetization, where our revenue's coming from. Everybody sees the
Top
report.
10 conditions, right? What are the top 10 conditions every day?
And then if something's going wrong, we know there's something wrong here, we'll dig deep into it and say, okay, we gotta fix this.
Yeah.
And who's responsible for it? And it helps, it makes a big difference.
Numbers, it's that dashboard. Numbers. It's all numbers. Everywhere you turn, it's numbers. I just view them as people, right? It's just the difference between the accountants and he looks at it as numbers.
No, I mean, you put a face to it.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
you definitely put it,
Yeah, it's the her meter.
Yeah.
It's the her meter.
Is your main business model advertising based on content or selling product?
Advertising, big chunk of it. And we create content. We can also get you more distribution than anybody else for a brand. So getting traffic is hard. We know how to deliver traffic. We also know how to have a conversation with her.
How do you think you compare to competitors like WebMD or Everyday Health?
Very different.
Yeah.
It's not even in the same ballpark.
They're broad plays, and very broad. We'll work with like Healthline, we'll work with some of them. But at the end of the day, think of it this way. Abilene is a great app for women. How many other apps are there that are targeted and built for women from the ground up? Everyday Health was not built from the ground up for women. WebMD was not built from the ground up for women. And so that's what we take pride in, is we built from the ground up for women. And that makes a big difference. And also the direction that we're going is very different. We do more content marketing probably than that. A big chunk of our business is that. Skin-safe, ingredient-based stuff that we're moving into. Our ad exchange that we're building out using data. And Everyday Health is more media-centric on one side. WebMD is WebMD.
So this place I look at, there's some research being involved at Mayo, just Facebook communities around the world which had similar conditions. They just found a Facebook group to communicate. Then the research got put into it because there was a need. So how do you use your content? Because I see you are doing the similar thing, but this is a focus group for a specific need that is driven by people. How do you use this content and turn into research?
And the data. We haven't done that yet. Yeah, we haven't done here. It's a great question, and we're going to do, because you can only imagine how much data we have, right? When you think about it, there's so much information here. We just haven't started to mine it yet, because that wasn't in the thought process when I started. With SkinSafe, it's all about the data, right? It's going to be all about the data because we built it that way. But with Empower, as we do the next iteration, then we'll make sure that we have that data component in there. And you're right, Facebook has these certain groups on there that are talking about specific health topics, but for the most part, they're not big on talking health. And in particularly women's health for whatever reason, because it's more personal. There's more personalized things that come up with women. And so they tend to not want to do that on Facebook. So they'll come to a site like Empower more so than they will do it on Facebook. But yeah, the data is huge. It's critical. And one of the things that I didn't do again was, when I finally started taking addresses, right, emails, I should have asked for their zip code, because then I could geo-target. Then I got smart and started asking for their zip code. But you just don't know these things. I mean, I wish there was a manual that I would have had when I started that I could go through, that I could have gone through, right? And I will write a book on this. The 10 things you don't want to do when starting a startup. Because I don't want you to have to make the same mistakes I made. Because it costs a lot of money to make those mistakes. And that's money that I could use, could have used differently today. But, hindsight is 20/20. But, once you get that entrepreneurial spirit, there's nothing quite like it.
So you need to move so fast, I forgot who said that, it's so fast that you break things. And that's when you know that you're pushing the limit. And that's the constant state that we live in.
Yeah,
Pushing everything, you want to be breaking stuff. Because, we got to fix it at the end of the day.
How about, we were talking about medicine, how about homeopathic kind of treatments, which hasn't taken a lot of attention in our Western system?
Yes, we have a lot of, so, again, our job is to make sure that you have all your options and choices. So we have naturopathic, Chinese, you name it, it's on our site. I mean, we have everything you could possibly imagine. And a lot of what we're seeing today is that there's a lot of integration between traditional medicine and Eastern medicine or homeopathic. So there's a combination now, and even the doctors are getting more involved in, take a probiotic with your antibiotic, and so we're starting to see where there's more integration between the traditional and non-traditional, which is really great, because I think that you need a combination of a lot of different things. And even in the throes of cancer, we see a lot of cancer patients who will do other non-traditional treatments. I'm going in for surgery on March 20th. It was actually the surgery I actually needed instead of the surgery they gave me. But I'm doing some non-traditional things before I go in. So I'm going to boost my immune system before I go in. Did they tell me to do that? No, they didn't, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I know enough now that, if I can boost my immune system, and then once I get out of surgery, then I'm going to go back in and do some more boosting and go into a hyperbaric chamber, because I know that's going to help my healing process. And those are things that are on Empower. And that's really where the patient can take charge. Now, is some of that stuff paid for by the insurance company? No, it's not. But, it's an option and a choice for you. So I love all these mixing these treatments together. Because I think that gives you a whole package for yourself. Because no two people are alike. And then I'll shut up and quit talking, but we are all individuals. It is personalized medicine. What works for you and what works for me is going to be completely different. So you just have to remember that whenever you're handed a script or whatever it is, that you take a close look at that and make sure that you understand what the side effects are and that maybe this isn't going to work for you. And then you have to find what will. And it may not be a prescription drug. I'm not going to say it is or isn't. There is a need for prescription drugs in America and around the world. I take them. I know I can't survive without it. But it's just but I can't. One works for me and one doesn't. That's how sensitive our systems are, and that's how uniquely different we are. That's why personalized medicine is so critical today. And you use your gut to decide what's best for you. Because I always say when you put that pill up to your mouth, you know whether you should be taking it or not. And we just don't tap into that.
So how does the fact-checking side of what you put on the site and everything, especially when it's related to health and care and such, come into play in the business model or in the practice?
So when we're fact-checking, when we're writing articles, right, we do fact-checking and then we have an editorial process. So we have an editorial review.
We have a clinical editor that touches every piece of content on our site. Yeah, a journalistic and clinical editor. So every writer creates content on the back end, and it won't be published until they review it.
And then when you get, if somebody comes onto the site, and we won't allow you to talk badly about a doctor. So this is another interesting factoid about the company, right? When I started the business, they said, well, do you want to be the site where women come and they complain and they whine? And I go, yeah, sounds kind of good. Or do you want to be a site where you're empowering women, And I'm like, no, I'm kind of in the whining, complaining stages myself, so maybe that's where I want to stay. But the truth is if you don't tell the market who you are, the market's going to tell you who you are. And so we had to go out with, look, we're empowered, this is who we are. You're not allowed to talk about a doctor in a bad way. You can say what your experience was, but you're not allowed to say the doctor's name or you're going to get thrown out. And it's very interesting that we've had very few times where we have had to actually do something over the 7-year history of this company. I will say that, it doesn't happen very often. And you'll see people with spam, you always going to deal with spam. And that's one of our biggest issues, is the spam issue. People putting stuff on there, putting links in that, zero. Zero, because most of it's, they're trying to sell you a bill of goods. Right, and that's why the moderation piece is so important. So it costs me a lot more money to moderate it, to get those questions answered, and to make sure that the quality of the content is good. But it's my reputation that's at stake. It's the company's reputation, but it's her that's at risk. You have enough risk. I don't want to give you any more. Hope that answers it.
Yeah. And I think it's related to part of the transition from what may have been initially sharing personal experiences to something that's now a site for information, and how you decided this is what I need to make sure this information is accurate and useful.
Right, and I think on the sharing side of it, I might not agree with what somebody says. But what works for me, again, may not work for you, and vice versa, right? You just don't know. Right. But at least it's another nugget of information that you didn't have. And you can take and use that if it works for you or not. But at least you know that that's an additional resource, which I think is really critical today. Because again, we're not going to all think about our health the same way, and we're not going to all be faced with the same scenarios. They're all going to be uniquely different.
And I think we want to be the platform that's not telling you what to do, but for you to be empowered to decide what's best for you.
Yeah, it's never our job. Women do not want to be told what to do anymore. We're sick of that. I'm just here to say. So, and that's not what we, well, it's the truth. I mean, right, ladies? Am I right? We don't want to be told what to do. Just give us information and let us figure it out ourselves. we're good with that. So that's what that's really our core job, our core mission in the company.
In my experience working with doctors, these sorts of disruptive technologies have made a lot of them uncomfortable or resistant. So how do you feel like your experience with working with Mayo and the partnership has kind of been impacted by that?
It's been great.
Awesome.
People working with us have converted. They're drinking a lot of Kool-Aid.
I'll say that one interesting thing, so we do a lot of social media, and particularly Twitter chats, all of our Twitter chats every week. And more we're getting doctors interested in participating. So every week it's on a different topic. And it's funny because even with sponsored campaigns, we've had everyone, a doctor who doesn't know what a hashtag is, to we're very social media savvy. So it's kind of interesting teaching them and our social media team and learning from them and how excited doctors are when they actually participate, especially in these chats. They're able to have these engaging conversations through Twitter about health and wellness and answering real questions. So
I think they're opening up a lot.
A lot.
I think the only thing that we have to kind of figure out is price sensitivity, because I never realized how sensitive they are to price.
Doctors?
Yeah, compared to other groups. So
Very
that's something we have to look at.
Well, smart thing you did was not complain, but the doctors calling them out,
Really?
because they wouldn't be pulled to you. They wouldn't want to use you as an instrument that they can continue their own learning if they felt somehow they were going to get beat up for coming on there. So I think it's
Yeah.
a very wise decision to do that. It's about moving the whole needle forward, and you can't do that if you're ostracizing some groups.
I love doctors. I mean, I've got 21 of them that serve on my board. I've got hundreds of them or thousands of them that are on the site. And I think that, I always love when I go to conferences and I speak and a doctor will come to me and say, I had this woman come in today and she handed me stuff from Empower. And I'm like, really? I said, what do you think about that? She said, I love it. I love it. Because they like an educated patient. Right? They want you to take ownership of your health. The OBs that I've dealt with, they all say, and these women come in and I tell them what I want them to do and what I want them to read. They come back and they go, so what do you want me to do? And they'll say, it's not our, I'm not your husband. I'm your OB. You need to, this is a joint decision that we need to make. So I think they're actually really thrilled about the opportunity that they can bring in information that they're looking. And so I think the mindset is really completely turned around. And if the doctor doesn't like it, they're fired. That's just that simple.
And you're seeing like younger doctors now. I mean, the event we went to in Houston, you're seeing most of them using iPads. I was shocked.
Yeah.
They're on
That's
iPads.
what
They're on iPhones, and it's really cool to see them.
Yeah, it's a different world, and I think they're really opening up to it much more than I ever thought they would. And you don't want to alienate anybody, right? That's not the goal here. The goal is to make sure that that the relationship works and that there's synergies between the patient, the doctor, and the experience. We all want a good experience at the end of the day. So
just be patient. They'll be there.
yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.